I'm Gary Birtles, one of the old gits from a long time ago. You've got to tune into Tricky Talks, I believe, so just do it. All the best.
Robertson, the first time we've seen them attack them, and there's Francis! Well, that's what I wanted to see Robertson do. And still Robertson, getting his shot in, and a goal! Robertson!
Hello, welcome along to the Tricky Talks podcast. There's never a dull moment supporting Nottingham Forest, is there, as Forest fail to beat Wolves and Sean Dyche gets sacked. We're going to get into all of it right here and discuss what it means and what comes next. First of all, I'd like to welcome Chelsea. How are you doing?
Oh yeah, I just don't know what on earth's going on at this point, let's be honest. To be a Forest fan, it's just very much a rollercoaster any season, but especially this season. But yeah, I think we've got lots to talk about on this pod today.
Indeed. Kate's here as well, fresh from an appearance at short notice on Sky Sports News this morning. How are you doing, Kate?
Still processing. A little bit numb. Do you know, when they announced Vitor Pereira, somebody just messaged me and put, I can't even be arsed. I was just like, I totally get that. Totally get that. It's just, what on earth? Yeah. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, all right, thanks. Yeah, and finally, we have Mollo, who looks suited and booted, fresh from what I can only imagine is an interview for the manager's job. How you doing, Mollo? Yeah. It is. Yeah, it is. I think we can all agree we can't wait for this season to end, but we've got to start with the Sean Dyche news. Of course, a 12:31 in the morning statement again, which seems bizarre in itself to announce something that late at night, but they did it for Nuno, I believe. I woke up to the news after having a little bit of a lie-in this morning, completely surprised. But what were your thoughts, guys, when you heard the breaking news this morning? We'll start with you, Chelsea.
A part of me was surprised and a part of me wasn't, if I'm honest, especially like with how Marinakis is so cutthroat with managers anyway. I think when you look at it, it was one of them things where I think everybody wanted Dyche to work. The history of the club with Ian Way and Steve Stone, we all wanted it to work. I think, I'm not blaming Dyche at all, but I think there's many factors of why it wasn't working. I think from Edu, from Dyche, from the players, I don't think there is one single person to blame. I think it's very much a collective. But to play against Wolves and draw 0-0 when they've got, 8, but now 9 points on the table, and that just wasn't good enough. And yeah, a very, very mixed bag of emotions for me at the minute. It's a funny old day.
I'm sure we'll talk about the Wolves game a little bit more detail throughout the show, but we'll continue to talk about Sean Dyche. And Kate, at the final whistle, there did seem to be a load of boos. I thought I even heard some chants of "you're getting sacked" in the morning. Mm-hmm. I wasn't sure whether that came from the Wolves fans or whether it was the home fans, but was there a sense of inevitability after that final whistle, given the boos that were ringing out around the City ground?
I think there was a sense of inevitability that there would be boos, and it was both the Wolves fans and some sections of the Forest fans that were singing "you're getting sacked" in the morning. Like Chelsea said, you can't be surprised because it's Forest and we have a history of this. And yet at the same time, you go home thinking, not again. Come on now. So no, I don't think there was an inevitability. I don't think there should have been an inevitability, but that is applying logic to a situation that utterly defies it. So, yeah.
I mean, Mollo, what were your thoughts? Because there have been reports in the media that his job was under threat. We, as a collective, I don't think agree with what's been done because we have our own reasons for that. Where do you sit? Because it is what it is. We have to crack on with it. But why didn't it work for Sean Dyche, considering a lot of the stats, things like points per game, are in his favour and he's doing pretty well? taken them out of the relegation zone. He's done the job that was needed so far, but it's littered with so many bad performances in it. Leeds, Braga, Wrexham, to name a few. Are those the games that have caused him to lose his job, do you think?
To an extent, but I think it was Chelsea said it's not just one person, it's not just one thing. I think, first of all, you've got to say, for me, Sean Dyche is a thoroughly decent human being. He brought 2 Forest sort of semi-legends with him, and we all wanted it to work. The people, most, no, that's not true, is it? Not all. There were plenty that were up against him from day one. And I just think when he won a game, it was down to the opposition were rubbish, or a player did this, or a player did that. And when we didn't, but when we got a good draw, it was down to something else. And as soon as we lost a game, it was all about Dyche tactics and Dyche this and Dyche that. And there's a lot of rubbish talked about tactics, as a very wise man once said, but it's players that win and lose your games. And to go back to your question about the final whistle, not long after the final whistle, the rumours were flying around about meetings and arguing. I don't know how much of it's rubbish. I wasn't there. I haven't spoken to anyone who was there. I doubt I will in the next few days. But something clearly was going on. And I can't remember. I think it was Lisa Fox on Radio Nottingham this morning was interviewed. She said something like, it sounds like it wasn't an inevitable sacking, but the conversations that were had afterwards led to it. Now, I'm not going to throw the players under the bus in terms of their attitude and what they may or may not have said in meetings. I don't know. What I will say, if the rumours are true that they didn't like being run too much and they started their games too tired, come and do my job for a day, or your job, or someone else's job for a day, and get paid a small percentage of what you get paid as a very, very talented and fortunate individual. The ones that are complaining about the running, because I don't think running makes you miss a 6-on-1. I don't think running makes you head the ball wide from a yard out. I don't think running makes you tap the ball at the goal when the keeper's getting up off the floor instead of putting your foot for it, and various other things. So, for me, I don't think it was inevitable completely, but it's that thing. It seems to have gone on all season since we lost Nuno. The fan base keeps becoming split, and you have to choose your words carefully, because the expectation of the chairman with the money he's put in is very, very high, and I understand that, and it's quite right, and he's put it in. But then again, him spending 200 million of his 5 billion is probably less of a hit to him than us spending our X number of pounds going to an away game or buying kids for our tickets and whatnot. So I don't know. It's a tricky one, and I'm going to say whether or not it was the right decision. Ask me again in May, because we've got a very good guy in with a good track record who, had, again, he'll have the opposite problem. Hopefully, he won't have his team sold from underneath him as he had at Wolves, but it's a risk to take with so few games left. And me personally, I'm not a big risk taker. Poodling along at, I think it's 1.3 points per game or whatever it is. You're not going to get miles clear of relegation very quickly, but you're probably not going to get relegated. If we'd have carried on like that, I'd have taken that and reassess in the summer. I've watched enough crap football in the last 50 years to put up with 12 games where we just go out and scrap a few wins. But it's very, very nerve-wracking now. And I think the big push, if we're being honest, the other push, because we've got all that around it, was the unfortunate thing of what happens in football sometimes. West Ham suddenly started playing well, and who's their managers? That puts a different type of pressure on. Palace have now settled back down after the transfer window to an extent clearly. And Leeds have, with being a promoted side and not a very good side if we're honest, but they've got that home record to fall back on. So all of that has conspired. There's some people out there who we know very well who pin the blame on Edu and purely the recruitment, and it's definitely a part of that for me. It all comes together. If you haven't got everyone pulling in the same direction and some of those pieces aren't quite right, and we all know this, people have been around clubs enough to know the first thing that will happen is players look for other people to blame as well. And I know we're going to get into the Wolves performance later, but I can't think of the right appropriate word for a family-friendly podcast. We had too many shrinking violets on the physical side last night Not all of them by any means. So you know who, I won't name positions, but when you're chickening out of 50-50s again and stuff like that, is what it is, as you said.
Do you guys feel embarrassed to be supporting a team that's going to be going into their fourth manager this season? Do you feel ashamed that the managers are being treated like that, or do you feel as though obviously getting rid of Ange was a mistake and was justified? Or not? Sorry, appointing Ange was a mistake. Not getting rid of Ange was a mistake. But do you know what I'm trying to say? It's unprecedented. No Premier League team has ever had 4 managers in one season. Do you feel embarrassed by that statistic alone?
Marinakis has, though, hasn't he? This is quite commonplace for Marinakis. He's done this.
Well, last time he did it, the 4th manager won the league and cup double, and he's still their manager today.
I read that.
I think I don't know about everybody else. I separate the two things anyway. The actions of what's happening is embarrassing, and there are embarrassing elements to what's been going on. Of course there are, but I'll never ever be embarrassed to be a Forest supporter and what have you, no matter what happens.
No, I agree. Yeah,
isn't it? If you take each one individually, whether you agree with it or not. So Nuno had a falling out with Marinakis. He had the press conferences. He was quite public about it. That as an individual case, you can understand why Marinakis took the action that he did. We said it at the time. I couldn't speak like that about my boss and expect to still have a job. Okay, so we take that as an individual thing. We didn't like it. We still don't like it. But on its own, okay. So then we bring in Ange. Everybody's horrified. It feels like a terrible idea. Turns out to be a terrible idea. He acts quite quickly in getting rid of him. So you say, okay, it was a bad idea, but at least he's admitting his mistake. He's acting quickly. He brings in Sean Dyche. Mixed responses, but ultimately Sean Dyche's job is to keep us up. We've all only ever really seen him as a stopgap to the end of the season. So again, on the surface of it, you may agree with it, you may not agree with it, but there's an element of it being okay. And what I have said and what I will continue to say isn't necessarily the numbers with Dyche, okay? Because as Mollo said, points per game, it looks like he's going to do the job that he was brought in to do, which was keep us up. With Dyche, it's the nature of what we've had to watch, which we were warned about, and yet I still don't feel that it's quite fitted the model that we were told of Dyche ball. It's like he kept finding new ways to get it a little bit wrong. Sometimes we weren't fighting enough. Sometimes we weren't trying enough. Sometimes we were scoring too many goals, or not too many goals, but the opposition wasn't good enough, so it didn't really count. And then we had last night, which again, as I said this morning, is an absolute anomaly to have 30 odd shots on goal, 10 on target, and not to score. Like each of these things, they're bizarre, aren't they? They're bizarre and they're different. So, but again, if you take that as an individual, if he was the only manager we've had this season, then maybe you can understand it because the fan base is turning, the players look unhappy. But it's when you put them all together, that's when it becomes the thing where you ask the question, is this an embarrassment? And for other teams supporters looking at us, they're having a great day. They're having a right good laugh at us. And I get that because when you put those things all together, it is an absolute circus. As Mollo said, we're all of us really, really passionate Forest fans. We're never going to be embarrassed to be Forest fans. But there is a sense of, goodness sakes, somebody get it together. And I do feel that. I do feel that when I talk about it on here with friends. Come on now. So
I was watching the coverage this morning on Sky Sports News, and it was when Ellie was on Mollo, and they had a lot of comments on the screen from fans of other clubs, all saying the same thing, albeit in a different way, and that they couldn't believe, or certainly Dyche, they were pleased for their own clubs that Dyche has been relieved of his duties, and they were there were fans from Leeds, fans from Spurs, pretty much glad he'd gone because they think it helps them. And I think we agree, don't we, that we said last week that the number of games are running out and the transition it takes to embed a new manager, it means that that's going to take time in itself. and they're just running out of time, aren't they, Chelsea, as well? Do you agree with that in terms of you would have stuck with Dyche, wouldn't you, for the time being?
Again, hindsight's a wonderful thing. Is it the case of if we kept with Dyche, we wouldn't have got relegated? Or is it a case of actually, if we hadn't have sacked Dyche and gone with a new manager, then we would have got relegated? We have no idea at this point, and we won't know until May. Well, maybe a bit before, who knows? But I can't. I've seen a lot of people definitely blaming Dyche. I've seen a lot of people blaming the players, and a lot of people just blaming Edu. When we look at those three as a collective, you've got Edu, who we all know had, obviously issues with Nuno at the time, Zinchenko, Douglas Luiz, just to name a few of his recruitment choices. Obviously not great. Then we look at Dyche himself, which, we have all heard, whether it's true or not, about, the aggressive training and that players wanted him out. And I don't know whether any of you guys kind of thought any or seen any of this, or maybe that's just me overthinking, but I never felt like Dyche really had an arm around the players. Obviously, I haven't been to the games. Was he very much interactive with the fans? Because a lot of the time, a bit like last night, he went straight down the tunnel. Again, did he build up that, rapport with us as fans? Not as much as what he could have done, maybe, in certain aspects.
To start with. He certainly did to start with. But then once the negativity started in some areas very early on, he was understandably a little bit more guarded. And I'm not suggesting he's a newcomer to the Brian Clough or anything. Whether he's the right man for us or not, we'll never know now. I say long term, till the end of the season, as you've said, Chelsea. It just frightens me that we've done it at this point.
Oh yeah, without doubt. Because what is it? 12 games left to play. But also as well, then when we look at the players, the amount of money that we have on that pitch. We have Murillo, Milenkovic, even Callum Hudson-Odoi, Anderson. All of those players, how many we've got on that team who are absolutely fantastic. You're telling me that we can't beat Wolves?
Murillo wasn't playing. That's
no,
obviously,
the problem. Not with Murillo, but in terms of general, because they're going to have no problem if we go down, or next season, they've got no problem with going to another team. Absolutely no problem at all. And then you start overthinking things like, well, when we play better against better teams, is that because they want to put themselves in the shop window and the likes of Arsenal and the likes of Liverpool? It goes on there. It's just there's so much to think about that you just can't. Your brain starts wandering.
I think we always raise our game to, or conversely drop our level to the opposition, because we've seen it in Europe against part-time Danish teams where we've lost or whatever. But we've also seen us match Arsenal in many ways, smash Liverpool, that type of thing. So I think it's more, and it's such a cliche, the fine margins in football are very fine. And I think for us, we seem to play at the level of the opposition, as we did last night to an extent. Although we murdered them, didn't we? But I mean, who out there would have predicted a 0-0 with Wolves?
But you probably didn't predict 35 shots, though, did you, at the same time?
That stat's getting thrown around a lot, but when you look at it, let's be honest here, it should never have been 35 shots. When you've got all the back four taking pot shots from 30-plus yards consistently, you just think, what are you doing? You can't tell me one of those 35... I mean, it was becoming almost funny towards the end, because someone had picked up on it, I think round about the 50 or 60 minute mark. They must have looked at their phone or received a text from saying, we've had 29 shots already and so many on target. So we were taking a mick when I think it was a joke of an overhead kick at one point. We were like, does that count as a shot on target? And then there was that free kick that kind of drifted and nobody quite got on the end of it. It went just wide. Does that count as a shot on target? Yeah, that's the old cliche outside of football, isn't it? You could say anything with stats. If we had 35 chances, I'd say it differently. I don't think that stat tells the full story, does it, to be fair?
When we get to the end of the season, I'm sure we'll have a long discussion around why the season panned out the way it did and what are the long-term solutions, or where does the fault lie for what's gone on this season. And I think we all know the answers to that deep down, in terms of Edu's had a big role to play in this with the awful recruitment. The managers are being made the scapegoats in the short term, of course, because they're the ones losing their jobs. But at the heart of all of that are the players as well. You mentioned it earlier, Mollo, about some having meetings with ownership right after the game and a similar
Allegedly.
thing happened, allegedly. Similar thing happened. Well, I think TNT reported it actually during their live broadcast. They understood that there were meetings going on while they were still on air. Apparently, the players, though, right at the heart of it, and it's about time they started to take some accountability for their performances as well. I know Ellie was saying that this morning, Mollo as well, and I'm sure you and she have had those kind of conversations around. They must start to take some accountability. I know what Chelsea said about it's all right for them. They can go off and join another team in the summer, and if they do go down, there will be players going out inevitably. In order to take some accountability, though, they need to start showing it on the pitch, don't they? Starting with the remaining 12.
Absolutely. And for me, for most of the players on the pitch last night, it didn't go their way, but the effort was there for most of them. You couldn't say. But I was very scathing in my kind of words at the end of the game, and I was having a brief discussion with somebody with me, and I won't name names, but I described some of our players as cowards, and I meant that in two fronts. One, they were scared of the forward pass. You know, we've got certain players who, when they're on it, can tear a team apart with some of their passing, and we've seen some of it this season. It's pretty obvious what I meant there, isn't it, that we haven't seen before. But also, we even have players chickening out of tackles. Now, I think you can carry one player like that in certain positions. And if you've got, I'll throw an example out there, you know, an old-fashioned Franz Carr type player, you would never expect him to go in and win tackles or whatever, even in Wone when he played. But they give you that bit of magic potentially. But you can't have any more. And you certainly can't have any in the middle of the pitch. And that's been happening. And that upset me last night. And the cowardice of, you start hiding and it's hard because I'm not criticising the fans because I was one of the fans there getting frustrated and I didn't feel like people were on the players' backs at the start at all. But it didn't have the atmosphere of a massive game that we needed to win. And it's the chicken and egg. It's got to come from the players. And one player who is completely exempt from criticism on the pitch for me, I don't know about the politics off the pitch, it was Morgan Gibbs-White. Despite not being able to score from half a yard out what it was with his head, his effort, his running of the game in the first half particularly, but he never stopped trying things. By the end of it, it was so desperate. He was kind of coming back into the right back situation to get the ball. He shouldn't have to do that, but you can't fault his effort and bravery on the ball, etc., etc. But there's other players out there that you can, and you've nailed it for me partly, Simon. And people say, oh, you've got to give them confidence. He might not be a very good manager, Neil Warnock, but he always made that quote, didn't he, about if you could bottle confidence, I'd be a multi-billionaire and the best manager in the world. You can't just get confidence. It has to be built, doesn't it, through your performances. And we're not seeing much of that. But yeah, I'd say players do have to take a really long, hard look at themselves for their performances on the pitch, but I don't know what's gone on the pitch, to be fair.
Yeah, so what comes next then, guys? It looks like Vitor Pereira is going to be appointed as the new manager. We haven't had anything official yet, but that's according to Sky Sports, and we don't know whether it's an interim or whether it's a longer-term deal. But
does it make any difference?
It doesn't make any difference. I mean, you said
no
it
such
perfectly.
Thing anymore.
Yeah, you said it perfectly this morning, Kate, around who's going to be the manager next week, who's going to be the manager the week after, which was very funny, I have to say. But what would you guys do? Personally, I think we just need to get somebody to take us to the end of the season and then have a complete review at that point. But is that the direction you guys are hoping in, Chelsea, Kate?
There isn't anything else, is there?
No.
You know? Like, how could you possibly make an announcement to say we have appointed Vitor Pereira on a 4-year contract, taking us through to, I don't know when,
month.
Because it's farcical. It's absolutely farcical because of what's gone off, because of the nature of football, and because of the fact that we do not know what league we are going to be playing in come the start of next season. So it's absolutely farcical to call it anything other than interim at this point. Do you know what? If he comes, and we absolutely fly at the blocks and we're beating absolutely everyone and we're scoring goals and the players remember who they are and they've got the great big smiles on their faces about how amazing they are, then yeah, maybe we talk about him staying for at least another 6 months. I don't know. Right now,
A long time.
this is, yeah, it is, isn't it? Blooming heck. This is an interim appointment. Of course it's an interim appointment. And it is something that we have to accept. We have 12 games left. Is that right? Yeah, 12 games left. And those 12 games are now absolutely everything, aren't they? And, I mean, you would say it's got to be this guy till the end of the season. I mean, I wouldn't bet my house on it right now, but that is certainly what we're looking at right now. And we are hoping and praying that this guy is going to give us enough new manager bounce to make us safe. And then we can, like you say, we can get to the end of the season. Everybody can, I don't know, take a massive, hopefully sigh of relief or absolutely sob because we've been relegated. Whichever way it goes, this guy takes us to the end of the season and we take it from there.
You mentioned exactly something I was going to touch on there in you hope he gives us some new manager bounce. I know we talked about it probably multiple times, given the amount of managers we've had this season, that new manager bounce is actually a thing. The statistics have proved it. However, Ange didn't prove it because he didn't win a single game. So you'd like to think he doesn't follow in the footsteps of Postecoglou, but I do wonder if this decision has been made to give us that new manager bounce, to give us that kick up the backside, to get into a little bit of form before it's too late. That to me is the only logical reason, for doing it now. Spurs have done a similar thing. They recognise the fact that they've got to have that. They've not won in, looking at the schedule, their fixtures now, they've not won in at least 6, probably more. But they've recognised the need for a kick as well. Chelsea, do you think this new manager bounce is the only hope we've got now for saving the season?
Do you know what, Simon? At this point, I've got absolutely zero idea. I have no idea at this point. It's going to be either go one way or it's going to go another way. And we've got no idea. I remember when Nuno went, we had the conversation. Oh, yeah, but Ange, yeah, maybe. And we all kind of have that glimmer of hope. Ange comes in. Oh, right. Bugger off, go away. And we don't want you here. And then we have Dyche and it's like, yeah, but, new manager bounce, let's go, because we are, as Forest fans, we're going to get behind the manager. But now I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen. I hope that a new manager bounce happens because, God, do we need it right now. And especially if, the new manager bounce happens with Spurs as well, we're going to need that even more because we are in a relegation battle with them. But the proof is in the pudding at this point. I've got absolutely zero idea.
Again, I go back to something Ellie said this morning, Muller, in that it does seem at first glance that West Ham are in good enough form to get out of trouble, which leaves us and Spurs scrapping for that final relegation spot, given the fact that Leeds are also in a reasonable bit of form, having beaten Forest and come back to drawn at Chelsea the other night. So that game at Spurs in late March could be a relegation decider.
I think statistics don't, there's enough statistics in the time just of the Premier League under a 38-game season now to accept that you never go down with less than 42 points, and usually it's less than that. We need 5 wins or the equivalent, basically, don't we?
Yeah.
Or 4 wins and 3 draws from those 12 games. It's where those wins come from when you look through the fixtures. But it's Forest, you just have no clue. Who thought we'd win away at Liverpool and away at Brentford when we were in poorish form, not poor form? It's classic Forest. So there's still a part of me hopes that Palace's little blip upwards is over, but my concern there is they bought a good goal scorer who suddenly refound his form. Now is in a slightly better team. Leeds have got that home form to fall back on, although they are dire. But the other thing we watch in Leeds, they don't look like a team that have got one player that could derail their season with an injury like we have, or other teams. So, Tottenham have got loads of injuries and maybe some of them will start coming back. So you've just got to stop worrying. Not got to stop, of course we're going to worry about other teams, but we've just got to look after our business, find those 5 wins or equivalent or better, And if that new manager bounce starts with 5 straight league wins, I'll take that all day long. It'll be the dream. But yeah, we've just got to find those sort of 13 to 15 points we need, haven't we? And that's the irony about 1.3 points a game. That's the irony of everything, isn't it? I'm not saying it's the wrong decision to change things. It just frightens me.
Yeah.
I'm going to be that. I may have predicted the 0-0, but I'm certainly not predicting how the rest of this season's going to pan out.
Nope.
I'll have a look. But one bonus from all this, though, that we got to pick out the positives. There's 2 that I can think of, and one
I can
for
think
us
of
and
one
for
as
the team.
well.
One's the obvious one. It's 1 point closer to the record that needs to stand forever. But the other one that I read about today, and it's good for us because we do our end of season awards. We can have our own Manager of the Year award as well at the end of the season. Why not?
Talking to managers, Danny's been doing some research around potential managers for the long term, not as an interim, and I'm going to throw some names at you just to see if any of these appeal. I've not heard of all of them, to be honest, but Igor Tudor from Juventus averages 1.61 points per game. Roberto De Zerbi, Marseille, 1.52 points per game, been linked with Spurs. He managed...
Brighton.
Who did he manage? Pardon?
Brighton.
That's right. Eden Terzic, I know I've mentioned before, Dortmund 1.95 points per game. Marco Rose, Leipzig 1.97. Robbie Keane doing a good job in Ferencváros, 2 points per game since January 25. So that's not very long. And Vasco Matos from Santa Clara, 1.68 points per game. All of them are free agents apart from Robbie Keane. Any of those names appeal? Have to be honest, apart from Zerbi. I don't know too much about those guys and obviously Robbie Keane, but...
Yeah, maybe. But for me, it's all about the guy we've just brought in. I'm 100% behind him and see what happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, longer term, I know what you mean. I think the Marco Silva's the one that won't go away, isn't it?
Yeah.
If we're in the right division.
I think Glasner, Marco Silva and Areola from Bournemouth, they're all out of contract at the end of the season, and you'd like to think that given the Premier League experience that those guys have, they'd look to target one of those ones. And you're right, Marco Silva has got that history with Marinakis as well, hasn't he, at Olympiacos? So we'll keep an eye on that. But that's one for the future. Very much for the present, of course, is the fact that they did fail to beat Wolves last night. And I just want to throw some stats at you and the listeners that I put in the WhatsApp chat last night in relation to the game. So Forest had 62.9% possession, which was the 10th time in the Premier League that a side managed by Sean Dyche has had at least 60% of the ball, and he hasn't won any of those games. He's drawn 4 and lost 6. So that speaks volumes. And going back to the 35 shots that we mentioned earlier, without scoring was the most by a team without finding the net in a Premier League game since Man United had 38 and a 0-0 draw with Burnley in 2016. Just a couple of things, and there's one final thing I wanted to talk about as well in terms of XG, which is the in thing at the moment in terms of stats. And Forest's expected goals against Wolves was 2.55, which was the highest they've ever recorded without scoring a goal in the Premier League. Their second highest was an XG of 2.2 in what proved to be Postecoglou's final game and a 3-0 defeat by Chelsea. So that says to me they're creating the chances. They just are not clinical enough, which we can all see. And the 2.55 XG was the 14th highest XG achieved by a team without scoring in the Premier League since 2018-2019, a period spanning 2,919 games. The only Premier League team to have more shots than the 35 Forest mustered without scoring in the last decade was the aforementioned Man United against Bournemouth. And would you believe, this is the one I found quite remarkable, this last stat, 35 shots represented 10.5% of Forest's total number of shots for the whole season so far.
So what you're saying is we're top of the league for cock-ups. That's what you're saying, basically, isn't it?
Pretty much.
I don't know if we're allowed to do this, Simon. I think a picture paints 1,000 words, and all I'm doing is, I don't know if you can see it.
Move it down a bit.
I can't see that.
I'll turn off the light, sorry. Do it that way. There we go. There we go, look.
Yeah.
How do you butcher that? And when you analyse it, it's kind of... Because that was the chance of the game in its own way, wasn't it? And it was all Callum's own work getting us into that position. But there was 6 against 1. You got 5 options to choose if you don't count going himself because of the width. And he chose the 5th best option. And when you see the picture of him breaking his, neck trying to get in the box, and the other 4 are there in...
Yeah.
I've never seen that in professional football, ever.
For those listening, Molo has just held up a screen grab of the ridiculous 5 or 6 on 1 breakaway Forest had, which they totally cocked up.
6.
And it was, it was just laughable, wasn't it? Given the fact that, to that point, how dominant they were in terms of the game. I like the tempo. I like how they were dictating the play. They absolutely went about it the right way, but that particular moment just summed up everything, didn't it? It summed up the whole game.
Oh, just asking Kate, because I've never seen that at top level football, but it's the sort of thing you see with kids football on an irregular basis, isn't it? Because they all kind of look behind and go, oops, because the other team run through. So I imagine you've seen it under 10s a few times.
Do you know what, though? Was that not just our night personified?
Yeah.
That still image, that moment, it was just a picture tells 1,000 words. And that is exactly how you sum up last night's game.
Now, there was another moment in the game, and it did improve this, but I think we'd got to probably about 25 minutes in, and Lorenzo Luca had 1 touch in the opposition box. Yeah. And he looked at, as you can imagine, not to be too harsh on him, it was his debut, it was his first game. We were all clamouring for him on the last pod to make his debut, and sure enough he did, but he didn't contribute much before he was replaced by Jesus. He had 1 or 2 touches, but that miss for the 6-on-1 was just for a top-level striker, inexcusable, really, wasn't it, Chelsea?
Yeah, it was. I was so hopeful at the start, obviously, with him scoring last time. I was so hopeful, and I couldn't believe what I'd witnessed. If I'm brutally honest, and I remember just looking at Dad, and we both just stared at each other, and we didn't say a word. And because it was just, like you said, I was inexcusable. You cannot miss a shot like that. And so when you asked last time, is there hope because we've now got Luca? Part of me is like, I don't know about that either now, because we've seen him, actually score a goal and come on really well, and then we've seen him miss a chance like that. So very frustrating and just unbelievable. Just the whole game.
What did you make of him in general, though, Kate? He did make his debut. He got substituted for Jesus, who he himself was just as anonymous. I think he had one effort cleared off the line near the end, but I don't remember him having any touches of the ball at all. But what did you make of the debutant?
For a big bloke, it's hard to realise he's even there at times, isn't it? He was, like you say, the word's anonymous, isn't it? I was actually quite pleased with the lineup. When I saw that, I thought, yeah, okay, this is a lot of what we've spoken about and a lot of what I've spoken about with other people. It looked attacking. It was disappointing not to see Murillo, but yeah, we wanted Luca to start. I wanted Luca to start. Yeah. I was excited to see him start. I thought, yes, here we go. Hutchinson, Luca, yes, let's see this in action. And then it was just like, where are they? Where are they? And obviously the gaff when he spoons it over the bar. Again, just the evening personified, wasn't it? And I wasn't sad when they took him off. I thought it was potentially the right decision. There was definitely an argument for putting Jesus and Taiwo on at that point. I put it in my analysis. There was an argument for it. I felt by that point, Dyche was trying to protect the point more than anything else. So maybe he didn't want to take that gamble. Maybe that's the problem that he had, his reluctance to change, to make changes to, I'm going to say tactics, I'm using the word very loosely. Disappointing. Let's hope the new guy can get a tune out of not just Luca or Jesus, but all of them. That's what we got to hope for, isn't it?
Yeah. I said earlier, I like the tempo of that first half in particular. That was exactly what you wanted. If there was, aside from the quality of the finishing, the only criticism I had was Amari Hutchinson, and you probably got a really good view of this, Mollo, considering it was right in front of you. time after time he had the opportunity to take on his fullback on the outside and put in a cross, which is what Luca would have thrived on. But he kept cutting back on his left foot all of the time, it seemed, going back to Aina or going inside to Anderson, and never really grasped the concept properly of attacking the fullback. And that would have created even more chances than they did. And it was really frustrating that he kept doing that. And I did wonder whether he should have switched wings with Hudson-Odoi to kind of encourage him to, if he wanted to use his left foot, do it on the left-hand side and take them on and get the crosses in, because they were there for the taking, Wolves. But is that kind of the sense you got,
Absolutely.
given that Hutchinson was right in front of you in that first half?
100%. And if I'm going to try and mount a defence from what Kate said there, and she's absolutely right, he was anonymous. But where we sit, as you say, right in front of us, we're looking into the box, and the number of times he got himself onto their smaller defender and the ball never came in. And the irony was, literally a minute after he'd gone off, someone put a great cross into the box that we've been waiting all game for, and we had nobody big enough to win it comfortably. What he doesn't give you is much outside of the box, that's clear. He's not going to do the running and hold-up play that you get from someone like Jesus. So you've got to use him, and you've nailed it. We had the whole obsession with inverted wingers in the Premier League. When they swapped it for a little while, it wasn't as bad. I'm not sure what was going on with Hutchinson last night, and I have no clue how he stayed on the pitch longer than Hudson-Odoi. Apart from Hudson-Odoi's shooting was horrendous, or pass backs. Another one of our 35 rockets. But he committed the cardinal sin, and I know I bang on about it and the phrase you can miss a penalty, you can miss the target with a free kick, but you've got nearly 100 yards of pitch to aim at with a corner, so missing it's criminal. But to do it twice,
yeah,
I actually genuinely felt sorry for him, and apparently this Trent End had given him giving him a load of grief, and then Gibbs White was trying to calm it all down, or depending on which version of you read online what he was actually said, I don't care, because if he's trying to defend his players as a captain, I'll take that all day long. But it's just, you're absolutely right. If you were in A block, you would have heard people screaming, take him on, get down the outside, take him on. And maybe it's a lack of confidence in his right foot. Maybe it's because if he was coming inside quickly and swinging in those sort of left-footed in-swingers that we've seen once or twice before, I'd accept it. But he wasn't. As you say, it was just a simple ball back. And it just felt like an opportunity missed, because you're right, Wolves were there for the taking. And understandably, Wolves were terrible. They were even worse than we played at their place. But we didn't open them up. They never looked like scoring, apart from right at the end of those breaks where we'd kind of switched off. And it's like, not just him either, to a lesser extent Callum. And if you swap their wings, those crosses coming in with the correct foot in the old-fashioned wing play, who knows? And it's easy for us to say with hindsight. Everybody was saying it in a game, get the ball in the box. And that's the final point I was going to make about the new guy. He had one half chance with a header. One chance, so I think he should have scored with that 6-on-1. But I mean, seeing it today, and people said to it at the time, it did bobble just before it went out. I don't think he should have got the ball in the first place. I think it was the wrong pass, played with too much pace. That's by the by. He still got a score. But the times he took up good positions in the box and got himself onto the lesser defender and didn't get the ball. And the one time we got it into him, he was on their one. He was up against the big lad, wasn't he? And he won the header, but didn't win it cleanly enough to get it in the back of the net. And what I will say, he's clearly got the tools to be a decent player on what we've seen of him so far, and maybe a goal-scoring option, which is definitely what we need. But as Kate said, in actual effect on the game, he was pretty anonymous outside of those misses.
Yeah, I mean, they were so dominant, Chelsea, weren't they? I was saying to Danny that I would go 3-5-2 and take a defender off, because Wolves didn't look like they were going to score. Why not take a defender off and be more offensive and get more attacking players on the field? I mean, it seemed a waste of personnel having 4 defenders who were totally redundant almost in that first half.
Yeah, again, I don't know whether that was Dyche's move of just trying to protect having a clean sheet, or whether it was just at the end of it playing for that point we're unsure of. Again, it was that point of going, yeah, we didn't really need the back 4 there, to be honest, because we all know that Wolves were not great at all. We did, again, frustratingly, we did dominate, and like you said, the tempo was great, and we were as such driving the ball forward, but it just, I noticed more in the second half, it just became this pure desperation. Everyone was just trying to shoot. Milenkovic was going, I was going, oh, what a blooming waste. And then Anderson's trying to shoot, and like, we know that he can only score from a penalty. Like, just don't waste it, just don't do it. Just give it to someone who can even just cross it in. We know that Luca's there waiting. Again, it was just, oh, and another one. And it got to a point where everyone was just shooting, and I wasn't getting excited at all for nothing. No corners I was getting excited for, no free kicks, nothing. And again, like you said, Simon, that I don't know why there was 4 at the back at that point, but there was. And overall, it was just messy and it got disorganised. And really, by the end of it, we looked like we didn't know what we were doing. We looked desperate. And then it was like almost shutting up shop just for that point.
Yeah, it got to the sense, didn't it, Kate, at the end where they were desperate when you got the likes of Milenkovic shooting from 35 yards. It does smack of desperation, doesn't it?
Bicycle kick attempt.
Yeah,
My God,
exactly. I mean, then just quickly, just some breaking news. It's not Forest related, but the Nations League has been drawn now, and England are in a group with the Czech Republic, Croatia, and Spain.
Excellent.
So tasty looking group there. Just thought I'd throw that in. It just popped up on my phone. But sorry, digress.
I thought we'd sack Pereira then. Flipping heck, Simon.
yeah. Right, carry on, Kate. And Doy's overhead kick.
Yeah, again, it's just another moment, isn't it? You could make a comedy reel of last night. You really could. And I guess that comedy finishes with midnight last night when we sacked you.
Maybe we should start the podcast with the Benny Hill theme this week.
But on that note, let's finish. Let's finish with the comedy. Okay, yes. We are done with Dyche. I really hope we are done with bizarre statistics, performances that you can't analyse or explain, tactics that you can't understand, this revolving door of managers and the constant social media noise that does nobody any good, not us as fans or the club. Let's hope that we are finished with that now and we are moving on to some success, some hope, something that we can take pride in and enjoy watching.
Well, I'm glad Kate said that because I'm in the park of, it's 3 months still. That's so long. There's so much that could happen.
Take me all day, Chelsea. Take me all day, that.
There's so much that could happen. However, the next game is Europa League game. Do you think they should just focus on retaining that Premier League status now, Mollo? Where do you sit? Is the Europa League going to be a good distraction?
Yeah, I think perhaps just because I go, I'm a little bit biased in a sense. I've waited 30 years to get back into Europe. I'm lucky enough to have been there, seen it, done it. There's people even older than me, a generation above me, who have done it numerous times. But we've waited 30 years to do it again. Why would we bin it off and send out the reserve team? We've only got 12 Premier League games left. And if the players' rumours are to be believed, they're never going to have been fitter because they've been running so hard. So get on with it. Play your best team for the opposition that you've got. Go all out to win every game you play, the same as a certain Mr. B. Clough used to do, and build momentum. Because I haven't done the maths. What is there, about 8, 9, 10 games maybe left if we were to, God forbid, make it all the way to the final and a second visit to Istanbul. But that's only 22 games. Get a grip. It's not that bad. And if you win on a Thursday and you take that form into the Sunday, then brilliant. We're not in the FA Cup, as we know. We're not in the League Cup, obviously. Go all out in every game. Yes, you can rotate a little bit, but as we've clearly demonstrated, and we know we can talk about who's to blame, rotating is not working for us. There are certain core players who need to play every game to lift us and keep us at a certain level. Yes, your goalkeeper you can change. Maybe one of your centre-backs or whatever. Give the German lad a run. I don't know how good he is. We haven't seen. But basically, go all out to win every game. Nothing. I know they'll say they go all out to win every game, but when you see some of the team sheets, you think, oh, did you really? Does that send the message to win every game? When Ryan Yates steps on a pitch, whatever the game is, he'll go all out to win it. He won't bottle a tackle, and he'll try and do his job to the best of his ability, which may not be as high a level of ability as others, but at least you know that's what's going to happen. We need that from the whole squad and everyone who's picked, to treat every game like a cup final, because that's ultimately what it is. We've got to find these 5 wins or whatever equivalent, and why on earth? What, so far, the last count, 1,200 people are paid to go to Istanbul. That's not an easy trip. We're going to be treated like scum while we're there, like prisoners, for 6 or 7 hours. Kate made the point that at the time we were recording, we'll have been stood in the ground for 2 hours, and it won't have even kicked off yet, the game. So we've got all that, and I get it's for our own protection, blah, blah, blah. But we're putting up with all that and paying for it. They better turn up and do their best. It's not fair otherwise. So there we go. Sorry, rant over.
Great point to finish. We've been going over 50 minutes now, so we'll come to an end of the show. That's all right. Very valid point.
Stay on that point, Simon. I know you're trying to wrap it up, but it really irritates me that the two aren't mutually exclusive. If you said to me, here you go, you can choose to either stay in the Premier League or win the Europa League, okay, then yes, I am going to pick the Premier League. But that isn't the reality of where we are. One doesn't equal the other, or vice versa. We've now got a new manager coming in right at the end of the season. What he needs is matches. He needs time to implement his style. He needs time to work with his players and get them doing what he wants them to do. He's got 2 competitions in which he can do that in now. And that has to be a bonus. And God only knows why he wants to come here. But I would think that potentially playing in the Europa League is a selling point because we are still in that competition. So I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. Like Molo, I am going to Turkey and I do not want another Braga, okay? No. Because that does nobody any good. Not the fans, not the players, not the management team. So the two aren't mutually exclusive. We need to be trying in both. It isn't pick one or the other. Let's go.
So Molo and Kate have had their final words. Chelsea, anything final from you before we draw to close?
I think I've just hit delirium at this point, if I'm completely honest. But
Delirium.
I really have. I don't know what's going on. I don't know whether I'm kind of psyching myself up for relegation, whether I'm not. Yeah, just see what these 12 games got to happen back. God, the new guy, he's just got to pull a miracle out of the bag, hasn't he? Let's be honest. And let's hope he does.
We are the club of miracles, so who knows? Right. Very briefly, any final thoughts from anyone?
Can I just say my man of the match was the keeper for making sure we didn't actually lose at the end.
Agreed.
Yeah, okay.
Molo's moment was Callum Hudson-Odoi's amazing turn to create that 6-on-1, but not the rest of it.
Yeah, in a word, Kate, man of the match.
Yeah, Ortega.
Yeah, I'm going to go for Gibbs White for the reasons Molo mentioned earlier. And Kate?
Chelsea. Also.
Chelsea, sorry, beg your pardon.
I was like, Ortega.
I'm getting confused.
Definitely Ortega.
Okay, right. Thanks, guys. Much appreciated. We shall be back next week with a preview of the Europa League game away to Fenerbahce. In the meantime, thanks again for listening, and we shall speak to you again real soon.